Hello, this video is about the language learning browser extension for Chrome called Toucan that supposedly helps you acquire vocabulary specifically, not grammar, but vocabulary for a foreign language. I wanted to use it to passively learn Italian since I speak three Romance languages already. But I decided to test it with French first, which I've been learning for a few years, just to see if it was good enough before starting to use it for a language I don't know. And sadly, I found out that it's not good enough. And this is why. So before I begin with the examples of why Toucan doesn't really work, here's what it does really quickly. It changes random words in the articles you're reading on Chrome for words in the language you're trying to learn. So you acquire these words in a passive way that doesn't require that much effort, active effort on your part. And that's a very good idea. I very much liked this idea at first, but upon testing it's not so good. You will see why. It explicitly claims in their website that you're learning vocabulary in context, which is important, I agree. But the problem is Toucan doesn't really deliver on this promise of stuff being in context, and that's the main problem with it. The problem is that the vocabulary doesn't take the context into account very much. So Toucan doesn't understand context, doesn't do grammar very well as well, doesn't really identify the grammar aspects of the sentence, and thus it doesn't differentiate between the verbs and nouns and adjective versions of the same words, and it doesn't identify compound words. And you may be thinking, well, Toucan is supposed to teach you vocabulary. It's not its purpose to teach you the grammar of the language. And I completely agree. But in order to teach you the correct vocabulary, the correct translation for words, it needs to take the context into account. Otherwise, it will think it is the wrong word and teach you the wrong word for that sentence. And you will see there are many examples throughout this video of how it happens. So the rest of the video will just be practical examples of these issues, right? So starting with the compound words. Here in the original text, you had workbench and safe house. So those are two compound words. But instead of considering the compound word as a whole unit, Toucan identified the bench portion of workbench and treated it as its separate own word. And that's not how it works. You can't do it like that, otherwise the translation will be wrong. So workbench should be l'établi, but Toucan separated into the word bench and work and bench, and translated just bench, which is banc, and this is wrong. And safe house as well, you can't consider it literally as safe as in the metal box where you put your valuables into. In house, you have to consider it as a safe house, as a house that is safe, as the compound word. So it's a different meaning there, but instead it separated the safe portion of the word, thought it was the noun as a metal box with valuables inside, and translated just that as le coffre-fort, when the whole word safe house should be lieu sûr. So yeah, that's how it doesn't really work for compound words. Toucan will also fail to differentiate properly between verb versions and noun versions of words. So in this case, the machine or the computer will boot after your new BIOS tweaks are installed. So it will turn on, as in boot as in turn on. But here it thought it was the word boot as in a shoe. So it translated it as bought, which is wrong. It should be the verb to turn on, to boot, which is allumer. Here, between the players, meaning the players share their public IP address. So meaning as in it means that, but here Toucan thought it was the noun meaning, like to have a meaning. So the correct verb version would be veut dire or ça signifie que. You can have these two conjunctions to mean the verb, but thinking it's the noun here is just wrong. Here another case of compound word, which would be cheat sheet. So the regex is a kind of programming language. So you have a cheat sheet where all the most common commands of regex are written on. So, but it separated the sheet portion and thought it was a bad sheet, which would be le drap, as it put there. But the correct, as a cheat sheet as a whole, would be anti-sèche. Here, the small details, such as so and so. So in this case, is a detail as in like a small portion of the thing. But here it thought it was details as in the military word for confidential information, which it translated as renseignement. But the correct meaning here would be details as in small parts of something you have to pay attention to, which would just be détail, right? Here, the person is saying, oh, this happened, so no wonder this other thing happened. So the person is not surprised that something happened. And you have to translate it as a one unit. No wonder is translated as pas étonnant in French. But here Toucan took just the word wonder, which can be translated as émerveillement, but it doesn't work like that. You have to translate the whole unit of meaning, not just half of it. Here the reporter is saying that the situation described was wild, as in, oh, it was unbelievable, it was impressive, it was wow. But it's translating wild as in wilderness, so it's translating it as nature, as a concept, which is completely wrong. It should be c'était sauvage. So it was wow, it was impressive. Here it's saying the physical chip, it's a computer chip, so it's saying it's a physical chip instead of a logical or a digital chip. But Toucan is thinking it's the physical as a unit, which means medical examination. So it's a completely out of context and completely wrong translation here. It should be physique, the adjective meaning something physical. Here, the original said it will be less stable and crash more often, as in a software being less stable and crashing more. But here, it's considering crash as in like a car crash, a collision between two cars, when it should be planté, which means when a software crashes. Here, the word drop is being used as a verb to fall down on the ground. But it's considering drop as in the noun as a drop of water, which is goutte, when it should be the verb tomber. The person here is saying, I would love to help out. So I would love is j'aimerais, but Toucan consider just the word love by itself, which would be amour. Here it's saying, urging people not to change their routines. So change is being used in the verb form here, but Toucan thought it was the noun form, as in an alteration, a modification, a change, right? So Toucan translated it as changement, which is the noun form when it should be changer, which is the verb form. Here the social media campaign is out of order. So if you consider the English social media, that's médias sociaux, that's correct. And campaign is campagne, also correct. But in French, the adjectives come after the noun, unlike English. So you would have to say campagne de médias sociaux. So you have to put the adjective after and then join it with an article de. Toucan is not adjusting for the grammar of the target language. So if you would would read this and you didn't know enough French, you would think that it would be completely fine to say médias sociaux campagne instead of the correct grammar corrected version. So technically, Toucan does have mechanisms to correct these things, but it relies on the users, manually warning them of each individual error. And that's like trying to put out small patches of fire when the whole forest is burning. It doesn't do very much, because as soon as you put out one fire, it's going to pop up somewhere else. So the manual correction by the users is definitely not enough. The system itself, the artificial intelligence, or assuming they have one, that decides which words to pick and how to translate those words, needs to be much better. And that's not something you can fix by individual correction of each case, because there are billions and billions and billions of words in the internet. Perhaps they do have an artificial intelligence that is learning slowly from these user corrections. But I've been I tried for the first time Toucan a year ago, and just to see how it was. And it was and the same problems as I described in this video already existed. So they certainly haven't improved anything noticeable in the last year. So I'm not so sure they're actually taking real steps to fix the situation. Yeah, so that's basically it. I will not be using Toucan to learn Italian as I originally planned, because my experience with French showed me that it's not good enough for that. And that's it. I'm out.